My name is Kelly Anderson, and I'm 35 years old. Never in my life did I think my own family would try to take away something I worked so hard for. But that night at dinner, everything I believed about family started to crack. We were all sitting around the table at my parents' house when my sister-in-law, Jennifer Brooks, leaned back in her chair with a smirk. She spoke as if it had already been decided. When we move into your duplex, Kelly, we'll need you to fix up the master bedroom first. It's only fair, since we'll be living there long term. Her words hit me like a punch in the stomach. My fork was still halfway to my mouth, but I froze. My parents nodded along like this was a perfectly normal thing, like my years of sacrifice didn't matter at all. It was as if the whole table already agreed I would hand over my home, without anyone even asking me first. I sat there in shock. My entire world felt like it tilted sideways in that moment. I should tell you a little about myself first. I've always been the responsible one in my family. After college, when most of my friends were switching jobs, chasing hobbies, and trying to find themselves, I went the opposite route. I landed a job right away as a junior accountant at a tech company. 12 years later, I've worked my way up to senior accounting manager. My salary is decent, not luxurious, but comfortable. In this economy, even good pay doesn't stretch as far as people think. For almost a decade, I dreamed of owning property instead of wasting money on rent. The turning point came when my landlord raised my rent for the third time in just 4 years. I remember sitting at my tiny kitchen table, holding the new lease in my hands, realizing I had already paid him enough over the years to cover half a house, but I owned nothing. That night, I made myself a promise. I was going to buy a home. I cut out every extra expense I could. No more weekend brunches with friends. No shopping sprees. No vacations. I even started doing bookkeeping jobs on weekends, just to save faster. For 5 long years, I worked 7 days a week. When friends invited me out, I'd calculate how many hours of side work that dinner would cost me. And most times, I stayed home, while people my age were posting vacation photos from beaches and mountains. I was at home balancing numbers, making deposits, watching my savings grow. It wasn't fun, but I was determined. The day I finally qualified for a mortgage was one of the proudest moments of my life. I had saved $60,000 all on my own for the down payment. No family help, no inheritance, just years of hard work. I still remember standing in front of my duplex for the first time, holding the keys in my hand. Tears streamed down my face. It was mine, all mine now. The duplex wasn't fancy. It's in a quiet neighborhood about 15 minutes from downtown. 2 units, each with 2 bedrooms, separated by a shared wall. My plan was smart and simple. Live in one unit, rent out the other, and let that rent help pay my mortgage. Financial advisors call it house hacking. I just called it common sense. When I bought it, the place needed serious work. The previous owners were an elderly couple who hadn't updated anything since the early 90s. For 6 months, I worked on it nonstop. Every evening after my full-time job, every weekend I was sanding floors, painting walls, replacing fixtures. I learned to use power tools from YouTube videos. My hands were rough and blistered. My knees sore from kneeling on hard floors. But every change I made filled me with pride. The duplex was becoming more than a building. It was a symbol of all my sacrifice and effort. But here's the thing. My family never really understood why I was so obsessed with being financially independent. My parents, Robert and Nancy Anderson, were traditional. They believed in family support. And in their world, that mostly meant everyone rallying around my younger brother. Mark is 32, but to be honest, he's never been good with jobs. He's bounced around from retail to food service, construction, sales, offices, you name it, he's tried it. Every time, it was supposed to be the job that finally sticks. But it never did. He married Jennifer when they were 25. Since then, she hasn't worked full-time. She always has a reason. They're twins, Mason and Lily need her at home. Childcare costs too much. The hours don't fit their family. Her old boss was terrible. You name it, she said it. Meanwhile, Mark's unstable work history keeps their finances on the edge. My parents have bailed them out more times than I can count. Couldn't make rent. Mom and Dad paid. Car broke down. Dad wrote the check. Kids needed pricey preschool. Mom covered it. I watched this pattern over the years, with growing concern. Mark never faced real consequences for his poor choices, because someone was always there to rescue him. And yet, despite my frustrations, I love my family. My brother can be funny and charming. My parents mean well, even if their help has turned into enabling. And Mason and Lily, well, those kids light up every room they enter. Family is complicated, but they're still my family. About 3 weeks before that awful dinner, Mark called me. He said his hours were cut at the warehouse. I felt bad for him and even offered to help with his resume and practice interview questions. But at no point did I ever think about offering them my home. That idea didn't even cross my mind. Their situation was hard, yes. They were renting a 3-bedroom house at a high price, and with less income, it was tough to qualify for a new place. Jennifer complained nonstop on social media about their landlord, saying he never fixed anything. But honestly, when I visited, once I saw toys scattered everywhere, stains on the carpet, even a hole in the wall. Mark swore it was already there when they moved in, but I had my doubts. They didn't treat that house like it mattered. And deep down, I knew AY could never let them near my duplex. A week before the dinner, my mom casually asked about my tenant. Sean Miller, a quiet software engineer, had been renting my second unit for a year. I told her he was moving out at the end of the month for a new job out of state. She made this odd comment. Well, that's convenient timing. I didn't think much of it. Looking back now, I should have. Our family has a tradition of monthly dinners at my parents' house. We've been doing them since Mark and I were kids. Usually, I enjoy them. Mom's a great cook, and it's nice to catch up. That Sunday, everything seemed normal at first. I brought wine and a cheesecake. Dad was in his recliner watching basketball. Mark and Jennifer arrived late, as usual. The twins ran to the playroom. Mark plopped on the couch, and Jennifer drifted into the kitchen to help Mom. Though her version of helping usually meant criticizing. Dinner was roast chicken with all the trimmings. Conversation flowed easily. Mom asked about my work. Dad bragged about winning a golf tournament. Mark talked about maybe trying real estate next to career choice. I'd never heard from him before. It wasn't until dessert that the bomb dropped. I had just taken my first bite of cheesecake when Jennifer cleared her throat dramatically with that sugary sweet tone I can't stand, she said. So, Kelly, when we move into your duplex, I'll need you to renovate the master bedroom first. It's only fair since we'll be staying there long term. My fork froze. The room spun. Everyone was staring at me like this was perfectly normal. Mom nodded. Dad smiled proudly. Mark looked down at his plate. Avoiding my eyes, I finally managed to speak. I'm sorry, what do you mean when you move into my duplex? Jennifer rolled her eyes as if I was being difficult. Well, since Sean's moving out, the timing is perfect. We need a place, and you have an empty unit. I shook my head. That's a rental property. I need the income to help pay my mortgage. Mom patted my hand. Sweetie, family is more important than money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And that, right there, was the moment I knew my battle for my home had just begun. When Jennifer said those words, it felt like time slowed down. My heart was racing, but I tried to stay calm. I looked around the table. My mom, Nancy, was nodding like this was the most reasonable thing in the world. My dad, Robert, looked pleased, almost proud, as if I was about to make the ultimate family sacrifice. And Mark, my brother, couldn't even look me in the eye. He just stared down at his dessert, Hold on, I said, placing my fork gently on the plate. You're talking about moving into my duplex. For free. Jennifer gave a small shrug, as if the details didn't matter. Well, yeah, I mean, we're family. Sean's leaving, and it's perfect timing. The kids need more space, and your extra unit is just sitting there empty. Why shouldn't we live there? I could feel my face getting hot, because it's not empty. It's a rental property. I rely on that income to help cover the mortgage. My mom reached across the table and patted my hand. Sweetheart, money isn't everything. Your brother's family is struggling right now. This is what families do, they help. But before I could even respond, Jennifer jumped in again. Actually, we were thinking. She paused to glance at Mark, though it was clear she was running the show. Since the kids are growing and need separate rooms, maybe we could take over your unit, the bigger one. You could move into the smaller rental unit, or even find yourself a cute apartment closer to your job. My jaw nearly hit the table. Not only were they asking to move into the rental unit for free, they were asking me to move out of my own home. I couldn't stay calm anymore. Absolutely not. That's my home. I worked for it. I saved for it. I renovated it. It's mine. My dad spoke up then, his tone sharp and firm, the same tone he used when I was a child in trouble. Kelly, don't be selfish. Your brother has a family to support. You're just one person. You don't need all that space. I stared at him in disbelief. I earned that space. Do you have any idea what I sacrificed to buy that home? I worked 7 days a week for years. I skipped vacations, dinners, everything so I could save for the down payment. I refinished those floors with my own hands. I installed the bed in the kitchen tile by tile. And you're saying I don't deserve it just because I'm single. Mark finally spoke up, though he still wouldn't meet my eyes. We could help with the mortgage, just until we get back on our feet. How long would that take? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. What does help even mean? Are you talking about paying actual rent? Signing a lease? Being responsible for damages? Or are you talking about giving me a couple $100 when you feel like it? The room went silent. No one answered. My mom gave a little nervous laugh. These are family details, honey. We can work out the specifics later. What matters now is helping your brother and his family. Jennifer pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Oh, I've already got some renovation ideas saved. The kitchen really needs stainless steel appliances, and the second bedroom and the office could be combined into a bigger playroom for the kids. We could knock down that wall and make it perfect for them. I nearly choked. Knock down walls? In my house, the house I own. My dad cut in again, his tone like a judge making a final ruling. It's not just your house, Kelly. This is a family matter. Family property belongs to family. I felt like I had stepped into an alternate reality. No, I said firmly, my voice shaking but strong. It's not family property. My name is the only one on that deed. My name is the only one on that mortgage. I paid for it. I worked for it. It's mine. My mom sighed, her voice turning heavy with guilt. You're being too literal. We're just talking about helping your brother for a few years. 3, maybe 5, until they can get their own place. My head spun. 3 to 5 years. Based on their history, that could easily mean forever. I tried to stay calm. What about the rental income? Without it, I'll struggle to pay the mortgage. You make good money at your job, my dad said with a dismissive wave of his hand. You'll figure it out. Jennifer chimed in again. Yeah, and like I said, you could just rent a cute little studio near your office. It'd be fun. And we'd be taking care of the duplex, keeping it in the family. Everyone wins. Everyone except me, I thought. They had this all planned out, where I'd live, how they'd take over my home, what renovations I'd be paying for. And not once had they asked for my input. I pushed my chair back, my hands trembling. This is not happening. I'm not giving up my home. And I'm not giving up my rental income. I'm sorry you're struggling, but you need to find another solution. My mom's face fell, her eyes filling with tears. Kelly, how can you be so cold? This is your brother we're talking about. Yes, and I love him, I said, grabbing my purse. But what you're asking is completely unreasonable. As I headed for the door, I heard Jennifer's stage whisper, "See, I told you she'd be difficult. She's always been selfish." I drove home in a daze, barely remembering the ride. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jennifer, 2 pages long. A list of all the renovations she expected: paint colors, furniture preferences, kitchen upgrades, flooring choices. She even attached pictures. The audacity left me speechless. I sat in my duplex, looking around at everything I had built with my own 2 hands: the hardwood floors I had refinished, the shelves I had designed, the kitchen backsplash I had installed 1 tile at a time. Every corner of that home was a piece of me, and my family thought they could just take it, like it was nothing. Like I owed it to them. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept racing: anger, hurt, disbelief. By morning, one thing was clear. This fight was only beginning. At 7:30 the next morning, my phone rang. It was my mom. She didn't even say hello. "Kelly," she started, her voice sharp, "we need to talk about how you behaved last night. Leaving dinner early was very rude." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I left because I was blindsided. You all ambushed me with an outrageous demand to give up my home. I think my reaction was pretty reasonable." "Nobody's asking you to give up anything," she said, her voice shifting into that martyred tone I knew so well. "We're asking you to share with your family in their time of need. That's what families do." "There's a difference between helping and being taken advantage of," I said, my voice firm. "Mark and Jennifer want to move into my home, pay no rent, renovate it however they want at my expense, and push me out. That's not help, that's exploitation." My mom sighed dramatically. "You've always been so independent, Kelly. Ever since you were little, you never wanted to share your toys, always keeping things to yourself. Is that really who you want to be? Someone who puts possessions above family?" The guilt trip was so obvious it almost made me laugh. "Almost. This isn't about a toy, Mom. This is my home, my investment. Would you give up your house if someone demanded it?" "That's different," she said quickly. "We're older. We've earned our place. You're young. You can adjust. Besides, you're single. You don't have children to worry about. Mark does." There it was, the unspoken truth. In their eyes, my life mattered less because I wasn't married with kids. It stung. But it also gave me strength. "My answer is no," I said firmly. "I'll help Mark in other ways. I can help him job hunt, look for affordable housing, maybe even loan him money for a deposit. But I will not give up my home, and I will not give up my rental income." Her voice dropped to a cold whisper. "We'll see about that." Then she hung up. That afternoon, my dad texted me. He wanted to meet for coffee near my office. Against my better judgment, I agreed. He was already waiting when I arrived. 2 coffees on the table. "Princess," he said, using my childhood nickname, the one he only pulled out when he wanted something. "Let's talk reasonably about this." I sat down, determined to stay calm. "Sure, Dad, let's talk. This duplex situation," he began, stirring his coffee unnecessarily, "could be a win-win for everyone. Mark and Jennifer get a stable home for the twins. You get to help your brother. And eventually, once they're back on their feet, they could even buy the duplex from you." I nearly choked on my coffee. Buy it from me with what money? They can't even afford rent. He waved his hand like that was just a small detail. "Down the road, maybe. The point is, this is what family does. When I was young, your grandfather helped me buy our first house. That's tradition. Helping is one thing," I said. Completely taking over someone's property is another. Did Grandpa ever ask you to hand over your house to Uncle Frank? That's different, he said, frowning. And frankly, I'm disappointed in you. A young single woman like you should be more giving. Look at your cousin, Jessica. When her sister needed a place, she took her in without question. For a few weeks, I shot back. Not for years. And she didn't ask Jessica to move out or pay for renovations. His face hardened. I thought I raised you better than this. To be less materialistic. To sacrifice for family. I looked him dead in the eye. I have sacrificed plenty. I worked 7 days a week for years to buy that duplex. I renovated it with my own hands. I budget carefully every month to keep up with the mortgage. That's not being materialistic. That's being responsible. He pushed back his chair and tossed a few dollars on the table. I hope you think about what kind of person you want to be. Your mother and I thought you had a good heart. As he walked away, the implication was clear. If I didn't give up my home, I had a bad heart. The manipulation was so obvious it made me angry instead of guilty, and I knew this was only the beginning. That evening, after the tense coffee with my dad, I was still shaking with anger. I thought maybe I'd get a break from the pressure, at least for one night. But the phone rang again this time. It was my brother, Mark. His voice was softer than usual, almost hesitant. Hey sis, he said. About last night, I just want you to know, the way it came out wasn't really how I wanted to handle things. I laughed bitterly. You mean ambushing me at a family dinner, demanding my home, and acting like I was selfish for saying no? That wasn't the plan. He sighed. That was Jennifer's idea. She thought if everyone was there, you'd be more likely to agree. More pressure, you know. So you tried to gang up on me. Use the whole family to corner me, I asked, my voice sharp. Mark, that doesn't make it better. That makes it worse. He paused for a long time before speaking again. Look, we're in a tough spot. The rent at our place is killing us, and with my hours cut, we're struggling. When Sean said he was moving out, it seemed like perfect timing. The duplex just made sense. Perfect for you, I said. Not for me. I need that rental income, and I'm sure as hell not moving out of my own home so you can take it over. He tried again, his voice almost pleading. We could help with the mortgage, at least a little, until things turn around. I closed my eyes, shaking my head. Mark, when is that going to be? How many times have we had this same conversation over the years? You're always waiting for things to turn around. Meanwhile, someone else has to carry the weight for you. I can't be that person. Not anymore. He was quiet for a long moment. I get it. You're angry. But we're family. If the roles were reversed, I'd do the same for you. I almost laughed out loud. Would you? Honestly, Mark, would you let me push you out of your home, take your rental income, expect you to pay for renovations, and live there for years for free? Because that's exactly what you're asking me to do. His silence gave me the answer. Finally, I spoke again. I'm willing to help you in other ways. I can help with your resume, job hunting, even research affordable places to live. But I'm not giving you my home. That's final. We hung up, and not even an hour later, an email popped into my inbox from Jennifer. When I opened it, my jaw dropped. It was a 2-page document she had typed up, almost like a contract. She had listed out every required change to my duplex. New kitchen cabinets, stainless steel appliances, repainting every room, removing a wall to make a play area, converting my office into her craft room. At the bottom, she added a note. We can split the renovation costs, 50/50ths. Split. She was asking me to pay thousands of dollars to renovate my own property just so she and Mark could live in it for free. The audacity was unbelievable. The next few days were some of the hardest I've ever faced. The pressure from my family only grew. My phone kept buzzing with calls and texts from relatives I rarely spoke to my aunts, uncles, even cousins. The message was always the same. Family helps family. Some said it gently, others not so much. A few flat out told me I was being selfish. I quickly realized my parents were rallying the troops. They had told everyone a one-sided version of the story, where I was the villain who refused to help my poor brother to make things worse. Jennifer posted a vague status on social media. It's sad when you realize how selfish certain relatives can be when you're struggling. Dozens of people commented with sympathy, not knowing the real story. I felt surrounded, attacked on all sides. Even friends of the family were reaching out, telling me to reconsider. For the first time, I started to doubt myself. Was I being unreasonable? Was I truly selfish for wanting to keep what I had worked so hard for? That night, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the walls I had painted, the shelves I had built, the floors I had refinished. This was my sanctuary, my proof that sacrifice could pay off. The thought of losing it made my chest ache, but the thought of being labeled the family villain made me ache in a different way. I needed someone outside the family, someone honest. So the next day I called my best friend, Tiffany Evans. Tiffany and I met for lunch at our favorite Thai restaurant. We've been friends since college, and she's always been the one person I can count on to give me the truth, even when it hurts. As soon as we sat down, I poured out the whole story, from the dinner ambush to the coffee with my dad, to the manipulative phone call from my mom, and even the outrageous email from Jennifer. Tiffany listened quietly, her face growing more and more outraged. When I finally finished, she set down her fork and stared at me. Let me get this straight. Your brother and his wife want you to give up your home, lose your rental income, pay for renovations, and move out so they can live there for free. And somehow your family thinks you're the unreasonable one. When she said it so bluntly, I almost laughed. It sounded even crazier out loud than it did in my head. Yep, I said. That pretty much sums it up. Kelly, this is insane. Tiffany shook her head. You worked your butt off for that duplex. Nobody, family or not, has the right to demand you give it up. Helping family doesn't mean letting them walk all over you. I stared at her. But my parents keep saying, family helps family. What if they're right? What if I am being selfish? Tiffany leaned forward, her voice firm. There's a difference between helping and being taken advantage of. Helping means giving someone a hand when they're trying to climb. Being taken advantage of means letting them drag you down. If you give in, this will destroy you financially. And it won't teach Mark or Jennifer anything except that they can keep taking. I sighed. That's what I keep trying to tell them, but they act like money doesn't matter. Like it's no big deal. Of course they do, Tiffany said. Because it's not their money at risk, it's yours. If the roles were reversed, I guarantee you they wouldn't be offering you the same deal. Her words hit me hard, but they also gave me strength. Then she said something that made everything crystal clear. My sister went through something like this last year. Her husband's brother wanted to live in their rental property for cheap, way below market rate. She almost agreed, but then they talked to a financial advisor who showed them what it would actually cost over time. The numbers were shocking. That's what gave her the courage to say no. A financial advisor. That was exactly what I needed. Someone objective. Someone who could show me the real numbers without guilt, without manipulation. The very next day, I scheduled an appointment with a financial advisor recommended by a colleague. His name was Brian Foster. I brought everything with me: mortgage statements, rental income records, property taxes, utility bills. Brian studied the paperwork carefully, flipping through each page. Then he looked up, his expression serious. Ms. Anderson, he said, based on these numbers, letting your brother's family move into your rental unit without paying rent would cost you about $20,000 a year in lost income. That's income you currently use to pay your mortgage. I swallowed hard. The number sounded worse when someone else said it out loud. And if I moved out of my unit too? I asked quietly. He did some quick calculations. Then you'd be looking at about $40,000 per year in losses. Once you factor in paying rent somewhere else, plus losing both units' income. My stomach dropped. Brian wasn't finished. And those renovations they want. Based on construction prices right now, you'd be looking at another $25,000 to $30,000 up front. More if they want high-end finishes. I leaned back in my chair, dizzy. So over the 3 to 5 years they want to stay, I could be losing between $145,000 and $225,000, Brian confirmed. Not including possible property damage or legal costs if they refuse to leave later. I sat in silence, letting the number sink in. This wasn't a small favor. This was financial suicide. Sitting there in Brian Foster's office, I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. The numbers he laid out were staggering. This wasn't just a family favor. It wasn't about being generous. It was about risking my entire financial future. Brian wasn't done. He leaned forward and said, "There's also the legal side you need to think about. If you let your brother's family move in without a formal lease agreement, you'd have very little protection. And in some states, once someone has been living in a place for a certain amount of time, it can be incredibly difficult and expensive to remove them, even if they aren't paying rent." The thought of Jennifer and Mark digging in their heels, refusing to leave, terrified me. I thanked Brian, gathered my paperwork, and left his office with a heavy heart, but also a new sense of clarity. It was time to stop doubting myself. A few days later, I scheduled a consultation with the real estate attorney, Erica Thompson. I wanted to know exactly what my risks were if I gave in to my family's pressure. Erica listened to my story with a grim expression. "I'll be honest, Kelly," she said. "Family arrangements like this almost always turn into a nightmare. I've seen cases where relatives moved in temporarily and then refused to leave, stopped paying anything, and caused thousands in property damage. Without a clear lease agreement, you'd have no easy way to protect yourself." I swallowed hard. "So what would you recommend?" "Don't do it," she said bluntly. "But if you feel like you absolutely have to, then at the very least, you need a formal lease agreement, market rate rent, a security deposit, clear terms about who pays for what, and a specific end date. Anything less is asking for trouble. Asterisk, asterisk, and what if they refuse to sign a lease?" I asked quietly, already knowing the answer. Erica gave me a look that said it all. Then they're not planning to honor the arrangement anyway. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the past. Mark had always been bailed out. Our parents had paid his tuition when he dropped out of college. They covered his car payments when he quit a job. They gave him money for rent more times than I could count. Even I had helped before, like the time I loaned him money for his wedding or when I pitched in for the twins. Preschool tuition. But none of it had ever changed anything. Mark hadn't learned responsibility. He hadn't built stability, because someone always rescued him. If I gave in this time, it would just be another bailout except far bigger, with consequences that could ruin me. Maybe the kindest thing I could do for him now was not to enable him anymore. I spent the rest of the week preparing myself. I wrote out key points I wanted to make if another confrontation came. I researched affordable housing options in the area, apartments, assistance programs, even job opportunities. I practiced what I'd say, imagining the guilt trips and the manipulation I knew were coming. And most importantly, I reminded myself of one simple truth. This was my home. I worked for it. I sacrificed for it. I had every right to protect it. Sure enough, a week later, my mom called. "Kelly," she said, in that clipped, serious tone. "We need to have a family meeting. Sunday afternoon. Everyone will be here. We need to resolve this." Her words weren't a request. They were a command. I knew what that meant. Another ambush, but this time, I was ready. When I arrived at my parents' house that Sunday, the dining room table was set with the good china, the kind that only came out for holidays. Seated around the table weren't just my parents and Mark and Jennifer. Two of my aunts were there, an uncle. It felt like a tribunal. And I was the defendant. Mark and Jennifer walked in last, carrying a thick folder. Jennifer set it down in the center of the table like it was evidence in a court case. I caught a glimpse of colorful printouts inside floor plans, decorating, ideas, even contractor quotes. My dad cleared his throat. We're here to discuss the duplex situation and come to a family agreement, he announced like he was presiding over a board meeting. My mom reached for my hand, her voice gentle. Kelly, we know you were surprised last time. We should have handled it differently. But now we can talk calmly and work this out. Before I could respond, Jennifer opened the folder and started passing papers around. These are the plans we've put together, she said, her voice professional. We've thought carefully about how to make the duplex work for our family. I looked down at the papers in disbelief. They weren't just casual sketches. They were full-blown renovation plans, walls moved, rooms repurposed, even an extension. On the back patio, Mark spoke up then, his confidence clearly boosted by the papers in front of him. We've gotten quotes from contractors. The total renovations would be around $30,000. We thought we could split the cost with you, Kelly. I stared at them, stunned. Split the cost. For renovations I don't want, to a property you plan to live in for free. Jennifer quickly jumped in. Not forever. Just until we're back on our feet. 3 years, maybe 5. My mom nodded encouragingly. And we've even found a place you could live, dear. There's a cute studio apartment near your office. Only $1,200 a month. Very reasonable these days. I almost laughed. They had planned every detail of my life, right down to where I would live. And they hadn't bothered to ask for my opinion once. My dad pulled out another paper from his folder and slid it across the table to me. The title read, Family Housing Agreement. It outlined how I would allow Mark and Jennifer to occupy the duplex rent-free for no less than 3 years, contribute to renovation costs, and relocate to comparable housing. The only mention of money from them was a vague line about possible future contributions once their financial situation improved. I pushed it back toward him. This isn't a legal document, and even if it were, I wouldn't sign it. This is a family matter, not a legal one, my dad said firmly. The point is to have everything in writing so there are no misunderstandings. The only misunderstanding here, I said, my voice steady, is that you think I've agreed to any of this. I haven't. This is my property, purchased with my money, maintained with my labor. I'm not giving it up. Jennifer rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. No one's asking you to give it up, just to share it for a while. Share, I said, my voice sharper now. Sharing implies equal contribution. What exactly are you contributing? The room fell silent. Finally, Mark spoke, his voice quiet but firm. We're family, Kelly. That should be enough. Before I could respond, Jennifer dropped her bombshell. Well, it doesn't really matter anyway. We've already given notice at our rental. The landlord has new tenants lined up. We have to be out by the end of the month. So we'll need your keys to start moving boxes this weekend. I stared at her, my hands trembling. You gave notice before I agreed to anything. She shrugged. We knew you'd come around once you had time to think about it. Family doesn't let family become homeless. Mark leaned forward. So, the keys. Something inside me snapped. Stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. My heart was pounding, but my voice came out steady. No, I said firmly. Not only am I not giving you my keys, I'm not giving you my home. Not the rental unit, not my unit, not any part of it. Kelly, my mom gasped. Sit down. We're trying to have a civilized discussion. There's nothing civilized about this, I shot back. You've all planned out how to take over my property, displace me, saddle me with renovation costs, and strip me of my rental income without my consent. You're treating my hard work like it counts for nothing. My dad's voice was stern, commanding. We're your family. That property should benefit all of us. Did any of you contribute to the down payment? I asked, looking around the table. Did any of you spend 6 months sanding floors, laying tile, painting walls? Are any of your names on the mortgage I pay every month? Silence. I grabbed my purse and turned toward the door. I love you all, but I won't be manipulated or bullied. Mark and Jennifer need to find their own solution. If you walk out that door, my dad warned, you're choosing property over family. I stopped, turned back, and said, no, Dad. I'm choosing self-respect over enabling. There's a difference. And then I walked out, my hands shaking, tears stinging my eyes but my spine straighter than it had ever been. After I left that so-called family meeting, I sat in my car with my hands gripping the steering wheel, shaking with anger and hurt. The sounds of my mom's crying, Jennifer calling me selfish, and my dad's booming voice still echoed in my head. For the first time in my life, I realized just how far they were willing to go. When I got home, I locked my door, slid down onto the couch, and cried. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about respect or the complete lack of it. For years, my parents had treated me like the responsible one, the steady one, the one they could count on. But in that moment, all they saw was someone who could be pushed aside. My years of sacrifice meant nothing to them if it didn't serve Mark and Jennifer. The days after that meeting were tough. I barely ate. I barely slept. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts, some angry, some guilt-filled, some from relatives who were fed one version of the story and now thought I was heartless. By the third day, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Erica Thompson, the real estate attorney. After hearing the full story, she didn't waste words. Kelly, you need to protect yourself, she said firmly. I've seen family members move in without permission. I've seen them change the locks on owners. I've seen it all. You have to be proactive. Change the locks on both units immediately. My eyes widened. Do you really think they'd try to move in without my permission? Erica leaned back in her chair, her expression grim. In 20 years of practice, I've learned one thing. People can surprise you. And family disputes over property can get ugly fast. Better safe than sorry. That afternoon, I called a locksmith. He showed up within hours. When I explained that I needed both locks changed immediately, he raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. By the time he left, I felt a little safer, knowing no one could just walk in with a spare key. With that done, I turned my attention to the rental unit. My tenant, Sean Miller, was moving out in less than 2 weeks. If Mark and Jennifer thought they could swoop in, I needed to block that option fast. I spent the next day taking updated photos of the unit and putting together a fresh listing online. The space looked great, clean, updated, and ready for someone new. By that evening, I already had 5 showings lined up. The rental market was hot, and a 2-bedroom duplex in a good neighborhood didn't stay empty for long. The next day, I showed the unit to several people. Most were decent candidates. But one couple stood out, immediately: Scott and Amanda Lee. Scott and Amanda were both medical residents at the local hospital. They were polite, professional, and clearly impressed by the care I'd put into the place. We've seen so many rentals where landlords don't bother with upkeep, Amanda said, shaking her head. This is so different. You've really made it a home. Their application was flawless. Great credit scores, stable income, excellent references. By that night, I had approved them. 2 days later, they signed a 2-year lease and handed me a solid security deposit. I breathed a sigh of relief. With Scott and Amanda moving in right after Sean left, there would be no empty unit for Mark and Jennifer to claim. I also had Erica review the lease to make sure it was airtight. No wiggle room for anyone else to move in, strict terms about subleasing, and clear language protecting me as a landlord. It felt like I had finally taken control of the situation, but I didn't stop there. If my family wanted to claim I wasn't helping, I was going to prove them wrong. I spent hours researching affordable housing options for Mark and Jennifer. I found several apartment complexes with 3-bedroom units in their price range. I looked into government programs that might help with rent or even down payment assistance if they wanted to buy eventually. I printed everything out, organized it neatly into folders, and included notes and contact information. When I looked at the stack of folders, I felt proud. I wasn't just saying no. I was saying, here are real solutions that actually work. That Saturday morning, I invited my parents, Mark, and Jennifer to my duplex. I wanted to set the stage differently this time. No more ambushes at my parents' house. This was my home, my property, and we were going to talk about it on my turf. When they arrived, I had the dining table set with coffee, pastries, and the folders neatly stacked. My hands trembled a little as I heard their cars pull up, but I reminded myself I had the facts. I had the law, and most importantly, I had the truth. My dad walked in first, his face stern. My mom followed, looking tired and worried. Mark trailed behind, quiet, while Jennifer marched in with a glare like she was already ready for battle. "Thank you for coming," I said evenly, gesturing to the table. "Please, sit down. I have some information I'd like to share with you." They sat, though the tension was thick in the air. I started with the biggest news. "First, I want you all to know I've signed a new lease for the rental unit. A couple, Scott and Amanda Lee, will be moving in next week. Here's a copy of the lease agreement, with their personal details blacked out for privacy." I slid the paper across the table. Jennifer's face flushed red. "You did what? Without talking to us?" "Because it's my property," I said calmly. "And finding good tenants is my responsibility as the owner." My dad slammed his hand lightly on the table. "You did this deliberately to block Mark and Jennifer." "I did this because I need the rental income to pay my mortgage," I corrected. "And that brings me to my next point." I handed out the folders I'd prepared. "Inside, you'll find financial projections. Letting you live here rent-free would cost me over $20,000 a year. If I gave up both units, the loss would be closer to $40,000 per year. Over the 3 to 5 years you're asking, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. Money I can't afford to lose." My mom's voice was soft. "Money isn't everything, Kelly." "No, it's not," I agreed, "but stability is important, and financial ruin doesn't help anyone. That's why I've also included real solutions." I turned to Mark and Jennifer. "There are 3-bedroom apartments at Riverdale Commons for $1,500 a month. That's significantly less than what you're paying now. They have openings next month." I also included information about first-time homebuyer programs. You might qualify for down payment assistance. Mark flipped through the folder, his brow furrowing. "This actually looks doable." Jennifer snorted. "So your big solution is pawning us off on government programs instead of helping your own family?" "My solution," I said evenly, "is to offer practical help instead of enabling bad habits. I'll help you apply for these apartments. I'll help with resumes and job searches. I'll even loan you money for a security deposit with a written repayment agreement. But what I cannot and will not do is give up my home or my rental income. That would be financial suicide for me, and it wouldn't solve your problems long term." My dad stood suddenly, his face red. "This is not what we came here to discuss. We came to work out when Mark and Jennifer would move in." "That's not going to happen," I said firmly. "I've changed the locks, I've signed a new lease, and if necessary, I'll take legal action to protect my property rights. My decision is final." Tears welled in my mom's eyes. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." "I'm grateful for everything you've done," I said gently. "But raising a child to be independent doesn't mean owning their assets. My home is not yours to give away." Jennifer grabbed her purse, her face twisted in anger. I knew this would be a waste of time. "Come on, Mark, we'll figure this out without her." To my surprise, Mark didn't immediately follow her. He was still looking through the housing options I had given him. Actually, he said slowly, these places look pretty decent. Maybe we should check out Riverdale tomorrow. Jennifer's head whipped toward him. Are you serious? You're taking her side? Mark shook his head. It's not about sides. It's about reality. Kelly owns this place, not us. We need to find our own solution. My dad looked furious. So you're just giving up? Mark shrugged. Call it accepting reality. The meeting ended shortly after. My parents and Jennifer left in cold silence. But Mark hung back for a few minutes, asking more questions about the apartment complexes. For the first time in years, I felt like we were having a real conversation, not him expecting me to fix everything, but actually talking about solutions. When they finally left, I sat in my quiet living room, emotionally drained but relieved. For the first time, I felt like I had truly stood my ground. After that tense meeting at my duplex, things felt quieter for a while. My parents didn't call as much, and Jennifer stopped sending me long emails filled with demands. But the silence wasn't peaceful, it felt more like the calm before a storm. A week later, I was proven right. I came home one evening to find my mom's car parked outside my duplex. My stomach sank. She was sitting on my front steps, arms folded, looking like she'd been waiting for me. Mom, I said cautiously as I got out of the car, what are you doing here? She stood up, brushing imaginary dust from her skirt. We need to talk, Kelly. This has gone on long enough, I sighed. I thought we already talked. Not properly, she said. Not with you really listening. Inside, I offered her coffee, but she waved it away. She went straight to the point. Your father and I are very disappointed in how you've handled this, she said. You've humiliated your brother and Jennifer. You've embarrassed this family. And for what? A few dollars. A few dollars, I repeated, incredulous. Mom, it's not pocket change. It's tens of thousands of dollars a year. If I gave in, I'd lose my home. I'd lose everything I've worked for. She shook her head. You're exaggerating. You make a good salary. You don't have children. You can afford to help. That's not the point, I said, my voice rising despite myself. This isn't about whether I can afford it. It's about the fact that it's mine. I paid for it. I worked for it. And I get to decide what happens with it. She sat back, her eyes narrowing. So you really are going to put money before family? The guilt in her voice cut deep, but I forced myself to stay strong. No. I'm putting responsibility first. There's a difference. Her lips pressed into a thin line. If your grandparents were alive, they'd be ashamed of you. That one stung. I could feel tears threatening, but I held them back. If my grandparents were alive, they'd be proud that I worked hard to build a stable life. They always told me to stand on my own 2 feet. That's exactly what I'm doing. She didn't reply. Instead, she gathered her purse and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back and said, Don't be surprised if this decision comes back to haunt you. Family doesn't forget. When the door closed behind her, I collapsed onto the couch, my body trembling. The next day, I called Tiffany. My best friend. She actually said your grandparents would be ashamed. Tiffany asked, outraged. Yeah, I said, my voice cracking. It's like nothing I've done matters. All they see is that I won't cave in. Kelly, Tiffany said firmly, this isn't about family. It's about control. They're angry because for the first time, you're not giving in, and they don't know how to handle that. I knew she was right, but it didn't make the pain any easier. For the next week, I focused on the rental unit. Scott and Amanda Lee moved in, and it was a relief to hand them the keys. They were thrilled to have the place, and I could tell they'd be great tenants. But just as I was starting to relax, the storm hit again. It was a Sunday afternoon when I got a frantic call from my dad. Kelly, we need to talk right now. My heart raced. What happened? Mark and Jennifer showed up at the duplex today, he said. They had a moving truck. They said you gave them permission to move in. What? I nearly shouted. That's a lie. I never said that. My dad's voice was sharp. Well, Scott and Amanda were there, and it turned into quite a scene. The police were called. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I raced over to the duplex. By the time I arrived, the moving truck was gone, but Scott and Amanda were standing outside. Looking shaken, Scott explained. They just pulled up with a truck, said they were family, and tried to unlock the door. When we told them we were the tenants, Jennifer started yelling that you promised them the place. We didn't know what to do, so we called the police. Amanda added, the officers made them leave, but they said they'd be back. We were honestly a little scared. I apologized over and over, feeling humiliated. I am so sorry. I promise you, this won't happen again. I'll handle it. After calming them down, I went inside my own unit and collapsed in tears. The audacity of Jennifer and Mark was unbelievable. They had actually tried to move in behind my back. Even after I'd said no, the next morning I called Erica, the attorney. When I told her what happened, she wasn't even surprised. I warned you this could happen, she said. We need to take immediate legal action. I'll draft a formal cease and desist letter to Mark and Jennifer, making it clear they have no rights to your property. We'll also notify your parents so they understand the legal risks. She paused before adding, and Kelly, from this point on, document everything, every conversation, every text, every incident. If this escalates, we'll need evidence. My stomach twisted, but I agreed. That night, as I was making dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Asterisk, asterisk, it read. You didn't have to embarrass us like that. We just wanted a place for the kids. We'll never forget how you treated us. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream. You tried to break into my property with a moving truck. But instead, I took a deep breath and typed back. You are not welcome in my duplex. Any further attempts to move in will be considered trespassing. This is final. His reply came within minutes. Wow, you've really changed. Guess money means more than blood now. I put my phone down and tried not to cry. The next few days were filled with silence. No calls from my parents. No messages from Mark or Jennifer. But the tension weighed on me like a storm cloud. Finally, on Thursday night, the storm broke again. I was home watching TV when there was a loud knock at my door. When I opened it, Jennifer was standing there, her face flushed with anger. Before I could even say a word, she shoved a stack of papers into my hands. Since you care so much about legalities, here, we had a lawyer. Draft this. I looked down. It was some kind of family ownership agreement. It claimed that because my parents had supported me over the years, the duplex should be considered shared family property, and Mark and Jennifer had the right to occupy it. I almost laughed. It was so ridiculous, but the seriousness on Jennifer's face stopped me. Jennifer, this isn't worth the paper it's printed on, I said firmly. You and Mark have no legal claim to my property. None. And if you try this again, I will press charges. Her eyes narrowed. You'll regret this. You can't cut us out forever. Family always finds a way. Then she stormed off into the night. When I closed the door, I felt a mix of anger, fear, and exhaustion. But more than anything, I felt a deep sadness. This was my family. The people who were supposed to love me, support me, and protect me. Instead, they were trying to take from me, manipulate me, and bully me. But I knew one thing for certain now. I wasn't backing down. Not ever. The morning after Jennifer shoved that fake agreement into my hands, I woke up with a pounding headache. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her angry face, heard her voice threatening that family always finds a way. I made a pot of coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and stared at the papers she had given me. The family ownership agreement was laughable. It had no legal basis at all. But the fact that she had gone to the trouble of making it showed me just how determined she was. I forwarded everything to Erica, my attorney, with a note, "We need to shut this down, once and for all." Within an hour, Erica called me back. "Kelly," she said firmly, "this is harassment. I'll draft a cease and desist letter today. And I want you to understand, if they show up again, or if they try another stunt, you'll need to consider getting a restraining order. I know that sounds extreme, but your property rights are clear. You have to protect yourself." Hearing those words sent a shiver down my spine. A restraining order against my own brother and sister-in-law. How had it come to this? Later that day, I drove over to check on my tenants, Scott and Amanda Lee. I wanted to make sure they still felt safe after the moving truck incident. Amanda greeted me with a warm smile. "Kelly, don't worry, we're fine. We knew it wasn't your fault. We really loved the place. It already feels like home." Scott added, "But if they ever show up again, we won't hesitate to call the police." Their calmness reassured me. But I also felt embarrassed. They had signed a lease expecting a normal landlord-tenant relationship, not family drama spilling onto the lawn. Before I left, Amanda said something that stuck with me. "You know, you should be proud. Most people wouldn't stand up like this, especially against family. You're protecting not just your property, but yourself." Her words gave me strength. That weekend, I invited Tiffany over. She brought takeout and a bottle of wine, and we sat on my couch going over everything. "You need boundaries," she said between bites of chow mein. "Clear, firm boundaries. And it sounds like Erica's helping you set them legally, but emotionally, that's on you." I nodded. It just hurts so much. My own parents are siding with Mark and Jennifer. They act like I'm the villain for wanting to keep what's mine. Tiffany leaned forward, her eyes serious. "Kelly, listen to me. You are not selfish. You're protecting your future. You're protecting your hard work. If you let them take this from you, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And deep down, you know they'd never do the same for you." She was right. I knew it. But the truth still hurt. The following week, things escalated again. I got a call from my dad one evening. His voice was cold. "Kelly," he said, "your mother and I have decided that if you won't let Mark and Jennifer live in the duplex, then don't expect us at Thanksgiving this year, or Christmas. We're not going to celebrate holidays with someone who puts money before family." My chest tightened. "Dad, you're going to cut me off from the family holidays because I won't give up my house." "You're cutting yourself off," he snapped. "We raised you better than this. Your brother needs help, and you're too selfish to provide it. That's on you." When he hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Holidays had always been important in our family. Big meals, laughter, traditions. And now they were being used as a weapon against me. I tried to stay strong, but the weight of it all was crushing me. I started avoiding family group chats. I stopped answering calls from aunts and cousins. Even seeing my parents' number pop up made my stomach knot. It was Tiffany who reminded me, "You're not alone. You have friends who love you. You have a life outside of them. Don't let them make you believe otherwise." So when Thanksgiving rolled around, and I didn't get an invite, Tiffany insisted I come to her family's gathering. Her parents welcomed me with open arms, and for the first time in weeks, I felt at peace. There was laughter, warmth, kindness, things I hadn't felt from my own family in a long time. I realized then that family isn't just blood. It's the people who actually support you, who respect your boundaries, who don't try to take what's yours. But my parents weren't done. In early December, I received a letter in the mail. At first, my heart dropped. I thought it might be some kind of legal notice. But when I opened it, I realized it was from my mom. Her handwriting was neat, careful. The letter started softly. "Dear Kelly, I hope you're doing well. We miss you, but..." Then it quickly turned. "We don't understand how you can be so cold. Mark's children are your niece and nephew. They need stability. How can you deny them that? We're heartbroken that you've turned your back on family. At the end, she wrote, unless you reconsider, we don't see how our relationship can ever be the same. I sat there staring at the letter, tears blurring the words. It felt like an ultimatum. Give us what we want, or lose us forever. I called Erica, my attorney, again. Can they actually do anything legal? I asked, my voice shaking. No, she said calmly. They have no legal claim. The deed and mortgage are in your name only. They can guilt you, harass you, even threaten you, but legally, you're safe. Her words steadied me. Still, I knew the emotional war wasn't over. A week later, right before Christmas, Mark called me. His voice was tired, almost defeated. Hey sis, he said. Look, I know things have been bad between us, but I just wanted to say, I get it now. You've worked hard for what you have. I shouldn't have let Jennifer push so hard. I'm sorry. I blinked, stunned. Mark, are you serious? Yeah, he sighed. We found a place. It's not as nice as the duplex, but it's affordable. The kids will have their own room. We move in January. Relief washed over me. I'm glad to hear that, I said softly. I really am. And Mark, I do want to help you, just not by giving up my home. For the first time in months, we had a real, honest conversation. No pressure, no manipulation. Just siblings talking. When I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Christmas came and went quietly. My parents didn't invite me. Jennifer posted pictures online of their cozy holiday at home, pointedly excluding me from their captions. But I didn't care. I spent Christmas with Tiffany's family again. We ate too much, laughed until our stomachs hurt, and sat by the fire sharing stories. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing out. By January, Mark and Jennifer moved into their new apartment. It wasn't the duplex, but it was theirs. And slowly, the constant pressure eased. My parents still weren't speaking to me much, but honestly, I was okay with that. I'd rather have distance than constant manipulation. One night, as I sat in my living room, sipping tea and looking around at the home I had built with my own two hands, I felt proud. I had stood my ground. I had protected what was mine, and I knew one thing for certain. I'd never let anyone, family or not, bully me out of what I worked for again. January came with a new kind of peace. The chaos that had consumed my life for months was finally beginning to settle. Scott and Amanda Lee were fully moved into the rental unit, happy and grateful to be there. They paid their first month's rent early, and they even brought me a thank you basket with wine and cookies. It felt good to have tenants who respected my property and valued it. Meanwhile, Mark and Jennifer had moved into their new apartment. From what little I saw on social media, it wasn't fancy, but it was big enough for the kids, and it looked warm and comfortable. They weren't posting angry statuses anymore, and for the first time in a long while, there was silence instead of conflict. But my parents, well, that was a different story. Robert and Nancy still weren't speaking to me. They didn't call. They didn't text. They didn't invite me over for dinner. Every once in a while, I'd hear from an aunt or cousin that mom had been crying about losing her daughter, or that dad was ranting about how I'd betrayed the family. It stung. It really did. But at the same time, I realized something important. Their version of love had always come with conditions. As long as I sacrificed for Mark, as long as I played the good daughter who kept the peace, I was loved. The second I set boundaries, the love turned into anger and guilt. Trips. That wasn't real love. One evening in late January, Tiffany came over for dinner. We sat at my kitchen table, eating pizza straight from the box, and she looked around the duplex. You know what I see when I look at this place? She asked. What? I said. Smiling strength, she replied. Every inch of this home screams of your hard work. And the fact that you stood up for it, even when your entire family turned against youth, that's something to be proud of. You didn't just protect a house, You protected yourself." Her words sank deep into my heart. For months, I had been so focused on the conflict, the stress, the guilt. I hadn't taken a moment to recognize what I had done. I had stood up for myself. And for the first time, I felt truly proud. A few weeks later, Mark called me again. His voice was lighter this time. "Hey Kelly," he said. "The kids love the new place. Mason's got his own room, and Lily decorated hers with the unicorn posters. They're happy." I smiled, picturing my niece and nephew in their new rooms. "I'm glad, Mark. Really." He paused for a second before adding, "Listen, I know things got out of hand. Jennifer and we pushed too hard. I should have handled it differently. I'm sorry." The sincerity in his voice nearly broke me. "Thank you, Mark," I said softly. "That means a lot. We didn't fix everything in that one phone call. But it was a start." My parents, though, remained stubborn. For months, they refused to speak to me. Holidays came and went, and I spent them with Tiffany and her family instead. At first it hurt, but slowly I realized I was happier. There were no guilt trips, no manipulation, no one trying to take what was mine, just laughter, food, and warmth. And eventually, I stopped missing what I thought I had lost. Spring rolled around, and with it came a fresh perspective. One Saturday morning, I was out in the yard planting flowers when Amanda, my tenant, came over with her kids. They wanted to help me dig in the dirt, and soon we were all laughing and planting tulips together. Later, as I watched them run around the yard, I felt something shift inside me. This duplex wasn't just a property. It wasn't just an investment. It was my safe place. My proof that I could build something on my own. My independence, my future, my stability, and no one, not even my family, could take that from me. By summer, things had settled even more. Mark and I were slowly rebuilding our relationship. Jennifer and I kept our distance, which was honestly for the best. My parents still weren't warm, but they weren't openly hostile anymore either. It was as if they'd finally accepted that I wasn't going to give in. One evening, as I sat on my porch sipping iced tea, I thought back to everything that had happened to Ambush at dinner. The guilt trips, the moving truck fiasco, the fake agreements. It all felt surreal now, like a bad dream, but it had also been a lesson. I learned that boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. I learned that family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by respect, love, and support. And I learned that I was stronger than I ever knew. Months later, my mom finally called. "Kelly," she said quietly, "your father and we miss you. We miss having you around." My throat tightened. "I miss you too, Mom." There was a pause before she added, "We still don't understand your decision, but maybe we pushed too hard." It wasn't an apology. Not exactly. But it was the closest I was going to get. And for the first time, I was okay with that, because I no longer needed their approval to feel whole. Now, when I walk through my duplex, I don't just see walls and floors. I see my strength. I see my independence. I see the proof that I can stand up for myself, even when the people closest to me tried to tear me down. It wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But I know, deep down, that I made the right choice, because at the end of the day, family may be important, but so is self-respect. And I refuse to trade mine for anything.